Let's talk to Dave in Toronto.
Ooh.
Dave, you're live with Eric and V.
Hey.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I've been listening to your show for quite some time, and I've been trying to summon up the courage to call like everyone else, so I finally did it.
Ah, congrats. Happy to hear from you.
Just so you know, I love you guys. And I know we're running short on time, so I'll try to make the spiel a little bit fast for you guys.
Appreciate that, man.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I know I wanted to ask you guys how you're doing and all that, but it seems like we're low on time, so I'll just get straight to what my thoughts are about the whole God thing that everyone's talking about. So I had the opportunity to work with some like old Indigenous people, and they do meditation and that whole woo kind of concept thing. And one of the things that they were trying to tell me was about the descriptions that we use as people. We use these descriptions, these words to describe things. And one of the things that they were saying was that the English language, the man-made language, the new English language that was made relatively late in human era, the word that we use, which is called nature, the old word was just called God. It was just a label for things doing things without us knowing why they're doing things. For things having attractions and repulsions, affinities, non-affinities, likes and dislikes, rocks and anything as they move, there are things moving it. So the old word they said was God, and the new word is nature, and I feel like that's where most of us get tied up on. Yeah.
Maybe in the circumstance that you observed. I mean, that's not my lived experience, but if that's something that you've come across, we can talk about it.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much what I was calling to talk about, was that there's a bunch of things happening out there. And, currently we use the word nature. Nature is doing it. Does nature have a mind? What is it doing? But it's something is happening out there. Like things are, they're pretty much, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but they're interacting with each other. How about that? And that interaction, we currently call it nature, and the old word was God. It was just something doing something.
Well,
so I don't believe in a dude in the sky. Sorry to cut you off. I don't believe in a dude in the sky that's going to zap you if you jerk off or something like that. Like, I don't think about it like that. Doesn't make sense to me.
Well, good to know. I wasn't going to ask that particular question, but that's because our last caller already beat me to the answer on that. So here's what I want to ask. Are we playing word games, or are we trying to determine whether or not there is some kind of God that exists? Because if we're just talking about redefining words, then, I mean, cool, but that happens to all words. Or are we talking about something deeper? Because I might not be on track here. Help me out.
Okay, yeah. So the deepness just comes with the things that are outside doing whatever they're doing, and either giving them their independent minds or having something driving that kind of interaction. Like, for example, the attraction and repulsion between two things. So that movement there is what they just consider God at least in the old language. And I had the privilege to speak to some actual real Egyptian people.
But here's the thing. So if I were to create an electromagnet and I were to artificially create some magnetic force, would that magnetic force now be a mind?
No, absolutely not. But it does have its attractions and repulsions.
Agreed. And you're not saying that it's wanting to. You're not saying that it's I'm giving
there's no will behind that. It just has a reaction to things, right?
Okay, so it sounds like we're just redefining words.
That's what they were saying. The word nature is just redefining an old word. That's all I'm really saying. I'm not saying anything else. So yes, you're right. We just redefined an old word. That's all.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's an interesting conversation to have.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's
Sorry,
fine.
there's a little bit of overlap. Yeah.
I think it's an interesting conversation to have, especially because when I was coming out of Christianity for a while, for a while there, I was like, oh, well, I don't believe in a God in the sense of like maximally great being, but I do believe that nature is super cool and does things that I don't know about, and that we only understand a fraction of what's actually going on in the world. So maybe nature is God. And then I was a pantheist for like a hot second. And then I realized, well, I'm just putting another word on nature, right? So I kind of did the opposite thing. So instead of saying, oh, well, nature is God, I said, well, God is nature. And it sounds very similar to what you're saying. The point that I would have contention with is if you try to equate those, then a lot of people will say, well, if you believe in nature, then you by definition believe in God, and then you're not an atheist anymore. And I've had that play try to happen. So that's why I'm a little bit hesitant to get on board with that. But from a personal stance,
I don't actually believe in God. I just believe that things are doing things, and the old word was God. I don't actually believe in the majority of the definitions of God kind of thing. I think that yeah, I just don't believe in that at all.
Well, then if that's the case, then we've got nothing to argue about. I mean, really, what's interesting is, as we kind of observe the way we as a society and as a people move through the world and understand things, we learn more, and we gather that information together and create these views of the world that are in line with more in line with what's actually going on. So if you didn't understand how thunder and lightning were happening, but you decided to describe it as Thor tromping around through the clouds, then okay. But as you wound up learning about that natural phenomenon, you changed that view, and you started talking more about electricity. You started talking about lightning. You started talking about the processes in nature that lead to it. I don't know. It sounds poetic, but ultimately, if we're just talking about words changing, then I don't know, man. I agree with you. I don't see a lot of use to the conversation.
I think it's useful in that we have to understand that when a certain group uses the word God, they don't necessarily mean the same thing that we mean. And I think a lot of the time, especially atheists who have not done research into world religions and different types of belief systems, not that they're true, but a lot of the time they don't correspond to a maximally great being, like in the Judeo-Christian sense. I have a friend on Twitter who's a heathen, a pagan, and they believe in Norse mythology, I believe. And they were having this argument, and this atheist kept using terms from their understanding of Christianity. Well, you shouldn't circumcise your kids, and you shouldn't believe in a God that flooded the world. And this pagan was like, I don't. This is not my God. Like, you're not understanding. And so a lot of the time, I think that that's very useful to be able to say, hey, we are using the same word. We could mean very different things. And it could very well be that your word for God means something closer to what reality is than ours does. So we might mean this magical sky being. You might mean nature and the way processes outside of our comprehension work. There's a problem using the same word for both, and I agree with that, but we can't label our version of God on top of someone else's. So in that sense, I think it's a very useful conversation to have.
Yeah. I actually liked how you spoke about those, these stories, how it's like being interpreted, because I think they're actually just really good stories with good moral values, and I think humans are taking them a little bit too literal, and they're like starting to kill people, and they're doing all kinds of crazy things, thinking that it's actual literal thing, when in truth they're beautiful moral concepts that you can just choose to adopt in your life. Yeah. Cool.
Hey, I stand corrected. That was a very good point. I'm changing my view on that. You're right. there is value there.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up the conversation, Dave.
At least a 2%. Oh yeah, thank you. Thanks for taking the call. I've been thinking about calling you for like months. So I'm glad I did. Maybe I'll call back and we can continue our conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
If you've got more to add and you think that it would benefit by having a back and forth that we can, have something that everybody agrees, or not everybody agrees, but everybody could benefit from, then cheers. If not, you just want to kind of talk and share, I suggest you check out the Discord, because you've got a lot of people who want to have more kind of in-depth conversations that continue for a long time. That's a lot more...
lead somewhere, yeah.
Well, because this is a call-in show with a short amount of time versus having the time to go over some concepts with people. But if it's good for the call-in show format, we're here.
Cool. All right. Thanks, man.
All right. Take care, man.
Oh, and also I love you guys a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Take care.
Bye-bye.
That was nice.
Yeah, I like it. I think we don't talk enough about, and of course, the reason I don't talk a lot about religions outside of Christianity and that certain lexicon is because I don't have knowledge of it and have not talked to enough people to have a full grasp of it. But it's useful to know that there are other versions of religion out there and be aware that we're using words differently so that we can have productive conversation.
True.